Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're digging into a global market that, well, it might sound really specific at first. Controlling diseases in lawns,
Yeah.
turf diseases.
Yeah, it sounds niche, doesn't it? But stick with us because it's surprisingly big business. Think about it. Backyards, parks, golf courses, anywhere people value green grass.
Exactly. And we've got an excerpt from some market research looking at this, projecting trends right out to 2033.
Right. So our mission today is to unpack those numbers, figure out what's driving this growth, and, understand why keeping grass healthy is turning into a multi-billion-dollar global effort.
So let's jump right in. What's the big picture? How much is this market actually worth globally, and where's it headed?
Okay, so the report kicks off with the headline figures, and they're pretty significant. Back in 2021, the global market for lawn disease control was valued at $1,317.7 million.
Oh, okay. So over $1.3 billion already in 2021, just for stopping grass disease.
Just for that. And the trend is definitely upwards.
Hmm.
The projection for 2025 is $1,620 million. And then looking further out, by 2033, they expect it to hit $2,448.7 million.
So nearly doubling between 2021 and 2033.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty strong growth for something so specific.
It really is. And the report highlights this translates to a consistent global growth rate, the CAGR of 5.3%.
Okay, 5.3% year on year globally.
Yeah, steady growth. And the source suggests this is down to, expanding consumer awareness around the world. People are just noticing more.
Right.
And there's an increasing value placed on keeping turf healthy, whether that's residential lawns or commercial properties, public spaces, you name it.
People see sick grass and they want it fixed.
They do. And they seem increasingly willing to, well, pay for the solutions. Maybe you see a neighbor's perfect lawn or a pristine sports field.
Uh-huh. And you start thinking about your own patch or what could go wrong.
Precisely. Or you just understand better that, yeah, diseases are a real threat to the grass and, hey, there are products out there to deal with it.
Okay, let's break it down by region then. The report covers quite a few. Starting with North America, I imagine that's a big chunk of the market already.
Oh, absolutely. It's the largest piece of the pie. The total sales revenue for lawn disease control there was $550.8 million back in 2021.
Right.
That's projected to climb to $659.3 million by 2025.
Okay.
And then reach $937.9 million by 2033.
Almost $1 billion just in North America by 2033. And within that, I'm guessing the U.S. is the giant?
Overwhelmingly, yes. The U.S. market on its own was $430.7 million in 2021.
Wow.
And that's projected to grow to $708.1 million by 2033. That's a solid growth rate, a TAGR of 4.2%.
Still pretty healthy growth for such a large established market. What about Canada?
Canada also showing good growth. It went from $77.1 million in 2021 to a projected $141.6 million by 2033. Actually, a slightly higher CAGR than the U.S. at 5.1%.
Interesting. So steady expansion across the board there. But I think the report mentioned Mexico showing, what was it, more robust growth?
Yeah, that stood out. That's where you see faster percentage growth, even though the starting numbers are smaller.
Right.
Mexico started at $43 million in 2021, but it's projected to hit $88.2 million by 2033.
So more than doubling.
Exactly. And its CAGR is 6.1%, noticeably higher than the U.S. or Canada.
So North America overall is the established giant, but Mexico's market is actually accelerating faster. Any thoughts on why that might be, why the faster pace there?
Well, the report doesn't dive super deep into the why for each country, but typically a higher CAGR like Mexico's suggests a market that's maybe earlier on the adoption curve.
Okay.
Perhaps professional landscaping is becoming more common, or maybe awareness of these specific disease control products is just spreading faster among property owners or managers now compared to the U.S. and Canada where it's maybe more saturated.
So growth from a smaller base, but gaining speed faster.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it indicates a quicker rate of market penetration right now.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, let's hop across the Atlantic. Europe. How does that region compare?
Europe's another major contributor, definitely significant. The report puts its overall figures at $380.8 million in 2021.
Right.
And that's forecast to grow to $680.7 million by 2033. Its overall CAGR is 5%.
The 5%. So pretty much bang on the global average then.
Exactly. Very much in line with that global 5.3%.
And do we see similar variations within Europe like we saw in North America? Different speeds between countries?
Oh, for sure. The report breaks down some key players. Let's see. The UK, for example, it was $62.1 million in 2021, heading towards $99.4 million by 2033. But its growth rate, the CAGR, is a bit lower at 3.9%.
Slower growth in the UK then. Interesting.
Then you've got Germany, which is a larger market. It's growing from $79.6 million to $133.4 million.
Sure.
And France is pretty similar in size to the UK, moving from $61.3 million up to $100.8 million over that same period.
So solid, steady growth in the big Western European economies.
Yeah.
Any standouts for faster growth, like Mexico was?
Spain. The report specifically flags Spain for its higher CAGR. It's running at 6.6%.
6.6%. Okay, that's quite a jump compared to the UK's 3.9%.
It is. Spain started smaller, $25.1 million in 2021, but it's projected to reach $53.8 million by 2033. So again, more than doubling.
Right. Significant growth there.
Definitely. The report also mentions sort of generally increasing trends in Italy and Russia, and it gives figures for smaller markets too, like Luxembourg, modest growth, 3.8% CAGR.
Okay.
But then the rest of Europe category, all the other countries lumped together, actually shows a stronger collective CAGR of 5.7%.
Huh. So growth isn't just in the big names or the standout like Spain. It's happening across the board, maybe even faster in some smaller markets.
Seems that way. So yeah, just like North America, Europe shows a real mix in terms of market maturity and growth speed.
Okay, let's turn our attention now to Asia Pacific. The report described this region as particularly dynamic.
Dynamic is definitely the word. Asia Pacific starts at 293.
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
Dynamic is definitely the word. Asia Pacific starts at $293.2 million in 2021.
Right.
And it's projected to reach a really substantial $640.3 million by 2033.
Wow, that's a huge leap, almost catching up to Europe's total value.
It is. And crucially, this region has the highest regional CGR mentioned in the report. It's growing at a rapid 6.7%.
6.7%. Okay, that is fast. What's driving that, according to the source?
The report explicitly links this speed to two key factors: rapid urbanization,
Makes sense.
and just a growing awareness about lawn care in general within the region.
Yeah, you can see that. As cities boom and, incomes rise, you get more investment in those planned green spaces, parks, business campuses, nicer residential areas.
Exactly. And those spaces often demand more intensive maintenance, which includes disease control.
So who are the leaders there?
Well, China is highlighted as playing a major role in this surge. It shows really strong growth from $105 million in 2021 up to $244 million by 2033. That's a very significant CGR of 7.3%.
7.3%. Okay, even faster than the regional average.
Well, wait, the real standout growth story in the report is India.
India, really? What are those numbers?
India shows incredibly robust growth. Its CAGR is projected at 8%.
8%.
8%. Its revenue is expected to jump from $35.5 million in 2021 to a very notable $89 million by 2033.
Wow. An 8% growth rate is huge in any market.
Yeah.
So why do you think these factors, urbanization and awareness, are having such a big impact there, leading to these much higher growth rates compared to, say, the U.S. or even Spain?
Yeah, that's really the key insight for this region, isn't it? In more mature markets like the U.S. or parts of Europe, professional lawn care, disease control, it's maybe more standard practice, right? So you get steady growth, but it's slower.
Right, it's established.
Exactly. But in these rapidly developing, urbanizing economies in Asia Pacific, the introduction or the really widespread adoption of these kinds of services and products is much newer.
I see.
So as disposable incomes go up and cities get more developed, the demand for that professional-grade landscape look, including disease control, seems to be accelerating much, much faster, just from a lower starting point.
It's like they're catching up and setting new standards for what green spaces should look like.
Precisely, establishing new norms for quality. The report also lists other strong performers in the region: South Korea at 6.3% CAGR, Southeast Asia collectively at 6.9%, and Australia at 6%. So it's widespread growth.
That paints a really clear picture of these different global stages of market development.
Yeah.
Okay, what about Latin America?
Latin America also shows solid growth. Brazil is highlighted as a key player. Its market value is projected to grow from $21.8 million in 2021 to $47.1 million by 2033. That's a strong 6.6% CAGR.
6.6%, so similar to Spain's growth rate.
Exactly. Argentina is also showing upward trends. It goes from $9.9 million in 2021 to $19.6 million by 2033, which is a 5.8% CAGR.
Okay.
And Chile is also included. Shows a steady, if slightly more modest, rise with a 5.9% CAGR, rising to $6.9 million in 2033.
Okay.
And Chile is also included. Shows a steady, if slightly more modest, rise with a 5.1% CAGR. That takes it from $4.6 million up to $8.4 million.
So overall, for Latin America, Positive, steady growth pretty much across the board, mirroring the global trend, with some areas like Brazil showing particularly strong momentum.
That's a good summary, yeah.
Right, finally, let's get a quick look at the Middle East and Africa, MEA.
Okay. The report suggests there's potential for quite substantial growth in this region, too. Egypt, for instance, shows an increase from $3.6 million in 2021 up to $8 million by 2033. That's a really robust 6.7% CAGR.
6.7%. So similar speed to the Asia-Pacific average. Impressive.
It is. Turkey also shows significant growth. It's projected to go from $9.1 million to $10.7 million over that period, with a solid 5.8% CAGR.
And anywhere else in MEA?
Well, there's a rest of the Middle East category, which shows consistent growth from $3.4 million up to $6.4 million.
Okay.
And the report also identifies countries like South Africa, that's got a 5.6% CAGR, and Nigeria as growing markets, too.
So similar story to Latin America then.
Yeah.
Emerging markets for this sector, but showing promising, consistent expansion.
Exactly. Smaller base, but definitely growing.
Okay, so let's pull back from the individual regions for a moment. We've touched on some drivers like urbanization and awareness, particularly for Asia-Pacific. But what does the report identify as the sort of overarching factors driving this growth globally?
Right. The source boils it down to three main things driving the whole market forward. First, an increased focus on lawn aesthetics.
Okay, that's the obvious one. People want nice-looking grass.
Check. Second, a push towards sustainability.
Okay.
And third, advancements in lawn care technologies.
Right, aesthetics I get. But sustainability and advanced tech, how do those drive growth specifically for disease control? You might think sustainability means using fewer chemicals, which could shrink the market, couldn't it?
But that's where it gets interesting, and it's a key point the report seems to make. The demand isn't just for any old disease control. It's increasingly for solutions that fit with these evolving values. So sustainability might actually drive growth for things like biological controls or less toxic chemical options, or maybe precision application tech drones, sensors that use less product overall but target the disease more effectively.
So smarter, not necessarily just more.
Exactly. And advanced technologies could mean better diagnostic tools to spot diseases earlier before they spread. Or maybe new product formulations that are more potent, last longer, so you don't need to apply them as often.
I see. So it's not just a bigger market for, say, basic fungicides. It's a market that's growing because it's also getting more sophisticated, offering better, maybe greener, more precise solutions.
That seems to be the implication. The innovation itself is driving value and demand. It shows the market is adapting, trying to meet consumer demands, maybe regulatory pressures too for less environmental impact, while also leveraging new science.
And that sophistication, that value add, contributes to the overall dollar growth we're seeing. You know, it's fascinating how something that sounds so incredibly specific, like keeping grass fungus-free, actually connects to these huge global trends. Urbanization, shifting consumer values about sustainability, tech innovation.
It really does. It's a great example of how even these seemingly niche markets are tied into much larger economic and societal shifts. Maintaining those green spaces, it isn't just about aesthetics anymore, is it? It's getting tangled up with ideas about environmental responsibility and using modern tech.
Okay, so let's quickly recap this deep dive then. We've looked at a surprisingly large global market for lawn disease control, over $1.3 billion back in 2021. Projected to nearly double by 2033. Steady global growth overall.
Right, with North America and Europe as the big established markets showing consistent growth.
But Asia-Pacific is the real speedster, growing fastest thanks to that rapid urbanization and just more awareness.
Yep, and Latin America and the Middle East, Africa are also expanding pretty quickly, coming up from smaller bases.
And the key things pushing all this forward, according to the report, are that desire for perfect-looking lawns, definitely, but also this increasing focus on sustainability and the development of more advanced lawn care technologies.
It really paints a picture of a market reflecting both our long-standing love for cultivated green spaces and also our changing ideas about how best to look after them.
Absolutely. So here's a final thought for you, our listener, to chew on, based purely on these themes from the report. If this market is being driven by both the quest for aesthetic perfection and this demand for sustainability, well, those two things can sometimes seem contradictory, can't they?
They certainly can.
How might that tension shape the future innovations in lawn disease control over the next decade? Will we see breakthroughs that genuinely deliver both that flawless look and have minimal environmental impact? Or will market pressures force compromises one way or the other?
Yeah, what will win out? Or can they coexist? Something to think about next time you see one of those perfectly manic.
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
They coexist. Something to think about next time you see one of those perfectly manicured, totally disease-free lawns.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at something maybe right outside your window, actually. The lawn disease control market. It sounds niche, but there's a lot going on.
There really is. We've been looking at research from cognitive market research.
Yeah, and our mission really is just to unpack what's pushing this market, what's holding it back, and, the interesting new stuff happening. All about keeping lawns healthy and green. Give you that quick, informed view.
Exactly. And it starts with something pretty basic. That desire, almost pressure, for really perfect-looking grass. Think about it, homes, corporate HQs, fancy resorts, golf courses.
Everywhere, really. It's an
Yeah,
aesthetic thing, maybe even status.
Definitely status, but also function. Nobody wants ugly brown spots messing up their yard or, say, a big event. That demand for healthy turf is a huge driver.
And you mentioned function. It goes beyond just looking nice, doesn't it? There's a practical need, too.
Oh, absolutely. Think about sports fields, parks, golf courses again. Turf management there is critical. A diseased field isn't just ugly, it can actually be unsafe. Think about footing or just, unplayable.
Right.
So keeping those high traffic areas healthy, resilient, that's non-negotiable.
Why?
And it costs money, drives investment and control.
Okay, so the why is clear looks and performance. What about the how? Are the tools changing? Advancements?
Yes, definitely. That's another big driver the research points to technology. Especially with fungicides, we're seeing a shift maybe away from some older, broader chemicals.
Towards what exactly?
More sophisticated stuff, bio-based fungicides, things that are much more targeted. The idea is to be more precise, hit the disease, but use less chemical overall. Better for the environment, hopefully fewer side effects, it's smarter treatment.
Okay, smarter, greener, but surely it's not all smooth sailing.
Yeah.
What are the roadblocks, the challenges?
Well, a big one, and it's getting bigger, is the environmental and health concerns. People are much more aware now. Worries about chemical runoff getting into water, what it does to the soil long term, or, harming bees and other beneficial insects.
Yeah, you hear about that a lot. Regulations are probably tightening too.
Exactly. That pushes people, and regulations push them away from some of the older, maybe riskier options.
And I imagine getting professional help isn't always cheap or straightforward.
No, that's another key restraint, professional lawn care. It adds up. You need someone who can diagnose the problem correctly, knows which specific product to use, when to apply it, maybe multiple times.
Requires expertise and specialized equipment sometimes.
Right, so the cost can be a barrier for, say, individual homeowners or maybe smaller property managers.
And that ties into something else the research mentioned, right? This idea of a knowledge gap.
Yes, that's a huge factor. Honestly, many people just don't know how to spot common lawn diseases early on. Things like dollar spot, those little bleached circles, or brown patch, those bigger, ugly areas.
By the time you notice it properly, it's already bad.
Often, yeah. It's more established, harder to treat, definitely more expensive to fix. And if you don't know the right treatment or you apply it at the wrong time, well, you waste money, effort, and maybe even make the problem worse or help create resistance to the product.
Okay, so we've got demand pulling things forward, but costs and environmental worries, plus that know-how issue holding things back.
Yeah.
How's the market actually changing day to day? What trends are emerging?
Well, one really strong trend is using technology for better, smarter management. We're seeing things like smart lawn monitoring tools, IoT sensors you stick in the ground.
What do they do? Track moisture, soil conditions?
Exactly. Moisture, temperature, maybe nutrient levels, and mobile apps too. Apps that might help you identify a disease just by taking a picture with your phone.
Huh. So it helps with that early detection problem.
That's the goal. Get ahead of
Yeah.
it. Take precise action when needed. Maybe stop a small issue becoming a big headache.
Kind of like proactive healthcare, but for your lawn.
Precisely. And that connects really well to another big trend. This shift towards more organic and, importantly, preventative approaches. Instead of just reaching for the fungicide after you see the brown patch.
You try to stop it starting.
Yeah. Focus on overall lawn health. Things like improving soil aeration, using beneficial microbes to boost the soil's natural defenses, getting the watering and fertilizing right. Basically, making the grass itself stronger and more resistant to disease taking hold in the first place.
Makes sense. And I guess recognizing that lawns in different places face different problems.
Oh, for sure. That one-size-fits-all approach, it doesn't really work well. So we're seeing more development of customized solutions, tailored for specific regions and the diseases common there. Like treating snow mold up north is totally different from tackling, say, brown patch or dollar spot down south in the heat and humidity.
So tailoring makes treatments more effective.
And hopefully reduces unnecessary chemical use, too. You're targeting the actual problem better.
Okay, so let me try and sum this up. You've got this deep desire for perfect green lawns driving things.
Right, for looks and for function.
But then you have these real challenges, environmental impact, cost, and just knowing what to do.
Or restraints.
And pushing through all that are these trends. Smarter tech, more focus on prevention and soil health, and getting more specific with treatments.
Exactly. It's this dynamic interplay. The push for perfection meeting the pull towards sustainability and maybe responsibility, all being helped along by technology and better science. It's really changing how we think about lawn care and likely will continue well beyond 2025.
It definitely paints a picture of a market that's, well, complex and evolving, trying to balance that green ideal with being eco-friendly and affordable.
Which kind of leads to a final thought maybe for you, the listener, to chew on. As this tech gets smarter and sustainable practices become more mainstream, how do you think the future of lawn care will strike that balance, between wanting that flawless green carpet and needing methods that are truly sustainable, natural, maybe even easier for everyone to access? What role will you play? Embrace the tech or go back to basics with soil health or maybe some combination?
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.